Hey guys, welcome to episode number 71 of the Big Time Strength Podcast. Coach Gage Rozier here with you, and I am excited today to bring to you Coach Josh Wildeman. He is the head strength coach at the University of Southern Indiana, as well as a full-time instructor in the Kinesiology Department. So Coach is in a unique role there, something we dive into a little bit on this show. He talks a lot about his program, obviously, and what they're doing there, and he does a great job because they have a great team. They're in our conference, and his basketball team and softball team especially have had a lot of awesome success of recent. But across the board, they're a very, very good athletic department. He's doing a fantastic job with them. Something he talks about in the show I thought was pretty cool is how he collaborates with other departments there at Southern Indiana. He talks about kind of their relationship with the nutrition department that I think is really, really cool. He's getting some good stuff out of that. So hope you enjoyed today's show. Before we get to Coach, I want to get to our sponsors. Excuse me, battling a little bit of a cold. With our sponsors, we are with Team Builder. Number one, they are the leading software for high schools and colleges by providing coaches the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. If you go to sign up with code BIGTIME, you will receive a free APRU programming template, which works automatically within Team Builder. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with Team Builder. Thank you to Hewitt and his gang there for being our first sponsor we have on the show, and they're still with us. I really appreciate them. Our next sponsor is PowerLift. PowerLift is the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for collegiate and high school athletic performance centers around the world. PowerLift brings over 20 years of experience to the strength conditioning world. All products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Jefferson, Iowa. They are proud to support all coaches making the big time where they are at. We are very fortunate here on the Big Time Strength Podcast to be supported by two great sponsors. Really appreciate them. Guys, before we get into today's show, I just want to take a moment and remind you of Crush Cancer. It is still available, crushcancerbook.com. All proceeds go to those who are fighting cancer. There's over 67 workouts in the book, unique workouts from some of you guys listening, some of the top strength coaches around the country. Really cool manual you can get in honor of my cousin Riley Holstein, who we lost to cancer in September. So wanted to get that back on your mind if you are interested in purchasing. All right, guys, enjoy today's show with Coach Josh Wildeman. Hope you enjoy. See you next week. Hey, Coach Wildeman, welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast. I really appreciate you, finding time in your busy schedule as we kind of wrap up fall semester here. I know you're super busy, so really appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. Why don't you get us going here and just kind of explain your background through strength conditioning right now and where you're at right now.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I really, really enjoy the podcast. I think that there's a lot more people in the roles that you and I have and at the high school level that really benefit from the content that comes out of here rather than Power 5 jobs, even though they do a great, great job. Limited resources, so appreciate what you're doing and appreciate you having me on. My job here at the University of Southern Indiana is pretty unique. I think you may have touched base with some other people who have a similar role, but I teach full-time in the Kinesiology and Sport Department here, as well as oversee the strength and conditioning for the athletic program. So it's a busy, unique role that I have, and certainly not ideal, but we try to do the best we can with our allotted resources. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but collaborations with other places on campus to really give our athletes the big-time feel. I did not start with your most traditional route of strength and conditioning. Most people come up and they'll do their undergraduate and then go through a GA and then assistant and head. And my route was a little bit different. I was really positively influenced in high school by the coaches and teachers that I had. And when I went to college, that's what I was going to do. And so I was going to teach social studies and PE and hopefully coach. And right when I got out of school and got my first teaching job at age 22, I was really, really fortunate. I went to a really great high school. It was Castle High School in Newburgh, Indiana, to teach social studies. And we had a really forward-thinking principal, and he was great. And he saw me coaching. I was coaching football, and I was in the weight room every day with all of the teams and just working out myself, but helping them along the way. And he came to me and said, let's start a strength and conditioning program, and I want you to lead it. And I was 22 or 23 at the time, and excited as all get out for the opportunity, but so unprepared. Started that program, started having the classes. We had 7 periods a day, getting all our athletes through there and dealing with, the guidance staff and scheduling for that. A lot of hurdles. I went back to school and got my master's in physical education at Ball State with an emphasis in coaching, and really the curriculum is really NSCA focused and prepared me for the CSCS. And so, I did that for 8 years and built a really, really great program. And it was a unique scenario in that USI, which is about 45 minutes from Castle, contacted me about teaching their CSCS prep course they were teaching at night. They didn't have anybody to do that. And so for the last 2 years that I was at Castle, I would come out here at night and teach that course, which evolved into a situation where I got the opportunity to come out here into the role that I previously described. So unorthodox, but certainly one where I had to take my lumps and learn a lot along the way.
Oh, I love that. That's a great story, great background, and it's always interesting to hear different coaches' journey into the field. And you, like you said, definitely have a unique one. That's awesome. Something you mentioned in there is how at Southern Indiana right now you like to collaborate with other people in your department. So we've kind of talked before we started recording a little bit about what you're doing there with the nutrition department on campus. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So we are limited, right, regarding our resources. However, we're really, really fortunate because in our health professions college here, we have a nutrition department, and specifically we have one of those nutritionists or registered dietitians. Beth Young is also a certified sports dietitian with a lot of experience. And she is absolutely awesome about working with our athletes. She wants to, she enjoys that process. That's where her background is. And we work with them. We'll do stuff where, we'll help her with her research by doing some things. I'll guest speak in her classes on body comp. So it's a give and take relationship. But really, she does a lot of the giving regarding our nutritional advice, right? She sets up seminars, 4 to 5 a year for teams to come in, and they go through some really important stuff, right? How to eat on the road. You're on a bus trip, where do you guys commonly stop? She breaks down the menu for them, what's good to eat here, right? And there's a lot of times where those student athletes are sitting there in those sessions, they're going, I have no idea I was doing this to myself for the last 3 years, So she does that. She does eating on a budget. She takes our teams to the grocery store and tells them how to go about buying the ingredients, how to go about buying healthy foods, without, breaking the bank. We have this huge cooking lab here. She takes them through cooking classes, or, well, here's what you can use in your dorm room to cook healthy meals. We talk pre and post workout. We talk pre and post game. We talk getting on the road and what to do, amongst a travel schedule. And that's really been a game changer for us. She's a tremendous ally. And so anytime we can help the nutrition department or step in on that behalf, we definitely do so, because our athletes will tell you hands down that, if they stick to whatever she says, they're going to get great results. And so it's been a really great collaboration, because that's certainly not my specialty. So having somebody to be able to turn to, and she even sets aside times during the week where it'll be an open time. Hey, these are my office hours. If you want to stop by and do your weekly check-in with me and show me your food journal or, whatever they're working on, she will do that. So a really, really great situation for us there.
Coach, that's huge. And I applaud you for, I think collaborating with other people on campus is something that me personally, I know I could do a better job of, and I know not a lot of coaches just get, kind of caught in the, I'm going to do my own thing and try to do everything myself and mindset. and for you to collaborate with other people on your campus that can add value to your students and to the experience that you're giving them, I think is huge on your part. But what you just described there is that's as big time as you can get, especially at our level, Division II level, as far as nutrition goes. I don't know if a whole lot of schools are able to do that. That's huge.
No, outside of actually providing a training table,
Right.
A recovery station, right? Outside of that, it's as high of a level as you're going to get with it. So we're really beneficial. And since I teach in the Kinesiology and Sport Department, we utilize the bod pod a lot. We don't rely on the scale because we know that can lie, it can fluctuate, and so hopefully using measurements like that and utilizing our nutrition department, we're at least giving our athletes the best advantage they can when they come and see us in the weight room and they go out in the quarter field and play.
I got a question for you. We usually, I'm just thinking about, football trips and stuff. When you feed a big team on a low budget, you end up stopping at a lot of like Golden Corrals and that type of thing.
Exactly.
So what's her just advice when your team's going there? What would she say in that situation?
Well, her first thing is she gets with the coaches and says, "Where do you guys stop?
Yeah.
Right? Give me a list." And then what she'll do is she'll take the menu for whatever place. Some people are, a Logan's Roadhouse or McAllister's or kind of a more chain oriented where they know what they're getting.
Right.
And then she tailors it based on where they're most commonly going to stop because we're in the same kind of spot. We're in the same conference together. We know where you're going to stop in Kansas City, right? Because these coaches have been doing this for a long, long time. So she actually individualizes it and bases it on there. And then she'll go through and say, okay, here are my top options for, if you're going to stop here. This is what you're looking for. Here, look at these couple of things, right? These are things we want to avoid, right? And so she's not going to go through everything on the menu, but she's going to give some really great options and why they're great options, right? And then what to avoid and why to avoid. So I can't really speak to the Golden Corral exam. I know that, especially with a huge football team, but it's more along the lines of where do you commonly stop? What are you dealing with? And then let's educate based on that.
I love it. That's good stuff right there. I think that's something, again, I am not to the level of her for sure, but I think that's something that we could probably do is get a list or something or an idea where coaches are going and give them at least some options to say this will be better than that type thing and put the information in their hands to use it.
Exactly. Rather than we're going to order 10 pizzas for the bus, right?
Right.
That's that often happens. So and it's been really surprising. With how bad some of the habits were that student athletes are on top of it. Once they have an explanation and a rationale of like why they should pick this, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
It's been surprising.
That's good. Well, Coach, I really appreciate you sharing that, but let's get into the weight room a little bit and let's talk about just kind of your program a little bit. What do you value as a program, maybe your core values, and maybe describe kind of the culture of what you got going on there.
Yeah. When it comes to our core values, our first thing is be an athlete first, regardless of what sport you play. In a world of sport specialization, we'll have athletes come in and they're extremely talented at their sport. But when we ask them to do something dynamic that may be outside the limited movement pattern that they can do, they look less than the athlete they actually are.
Yeah.
And so we spend the early part of the off season with every program that I work with on being an athlete first. I know that sounds broad, but we work on movement mechanics, right? How you land, how you take off in regards to jumping, how you change direction, how you break on one leg, right? Like all of those little things in regards to movement patterns, and then working on the mobility of them being able to do exercises with really, really good technique in the weight room. So we say be an athlete first and then get specific. And so I always explain to them, listen, if you're here to play basketball, we're going to train you like a basketball player, but you've got to show me that you can do these prerequisite things first.
Sure.
So that's the next thing is we live by the motto, be a technician. So we're not a powerlifting team. I always tell the teams, when the postseason comes, they don't go and put this squat rack in the middle of the field or the court and say, well, who squats the most, right?
Right.
Who's healthy and who moves the best and who has maintained or increased their strength over the course of the season versus the other teams that have not, right?
Yeah.
We want to be healthy. We always speak in my athletes that they start to roll their eyes and that's when you say it too much. But I always tell them, your best ability is your availability. So we are big on technique, and we don't move up in weight or we don't progress our athletes until they demonstrate that. They're in a tough role because in my instructor role, I teach 2 sections of strength training techniques. So I'm very well versed on that. If I'm good at anything, it's that, and taking a look at things and cueing different things. So that's a really, really big part of our program is being a technician regarding that. And the final thing is we talk about positively impacting somebody else's session. And what we mean by that is it's great if you come in and you have a great session, but every team we work with are just that. We're a team. And so if when you walk out of there, you didn't make somebody else's session better, and that could be with helping them, load and unload their weights, spotting them, obviously giving them words of encouragement, competing with them, but if you didn't do anything to make somebody else's session better, you didn't have the optimal session.
Yeah.
And that's something we've really, really been working on.
I think that's we call that be a teammate. I love your mindset about that. I think that gets missed a lot. I love your mindset. I didn't mean to cut in on you there. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, that's I think that's something that student athletes they struggle with a little bit. Some teams more than others, but like the fact that why didn't I have the best day? Why aren't you telling me I had the best day when I came in and I put in work, right? And so we have to go into like, hey, but what did you do for the freshmen? You've been here 3.5 years lifting. Like, could you have walked over and helped them, right, in some way? What have you done from a leadership standpoint to make this session better for everybody? And so there's a big emphasis on that.
I love that. I love it.
The final thing is we say all the time, be accountable for every rep. And that sounds very simplistic, like, you get your workout card and you do every set and every rep of every exercise. We talk about that being the most fundamental baseline level. That's like getting a C in the class, right? You have a horrible program if that's just all you're working for. Be accountable for every rep for us means every rep was at the level we expected at, right? If the squat wasn't to depth, if the clean didn't get triple extension, if the intensity was too low and I could have done 5 more on that set, right? That's not being accountable for every rep. And so the mentality to ingrain that mentality of if I walk by and I give them a technique cue and they're on their last rep and they're able to, they do another one to fix it, right? Or if they're not, they rack it and then they get back in there. And even though it doesn't count as a set, they redo it from there.
Yeah.
And you can tell you've got the team you want, and it's always a constant process of working because every year it's a new year, it's a new team, right? But when you walk by and you say something and the person spotting behind them is an older student athlete and they go, that means do another one and get it till it's right.
Yeah.
Right. And when you get that, man, it puts a huge smile on my face because I know like we're there.
Yeah.
Right. We've got it. And believe you me, it doesn't happen overnight. And some teams are better than others. Right.
100%. And that's something that, I've been noticing a lot lately and been trying to preach as well is, just coming in and checking all the boxes that you did every set and rep it's literally just, like you said, it's a C or it's your ticket to the game. It's not a separating factor. I mean, it's not separating you from anybody or anything. It's how you do it, So I think that that message you're sending to them is huge. I love that. Oh. Coach, let's talk real quick about you're working with every team there, and like you said, every team's kind of got its own culture and its own. Can't think of the word I want.
Well, identity. Yeah. I
Identity,
mean,
yes, thank
probably.
you. Identity.
And,
So, what are maybe some ways that you help build team camaraderie across all those sports and develop leaders with all your athletes?
okay. Well, before you go any further, so I probably should have made this more clear. So yeah, I oversee everybody's. We actually contract two people on a part-time basis
Okay.
who work with me, and I'm super fortunate. They're former students and interns of mine. So
Great.
to say we're directly aligned is really, really good. So we have an individual who's a high school strength and conditioning coach and teacher, and she does both soccer. She played soccer here. And then we have a former women's basketball player here who's also now an assistant on the staff who does women's basketball and both tennises. So I see everybody's program. They work with me in that regard and oversee the department, so to speak. But I do want to make sure I give them credit for because they do a tremendous job. And right now, like I said, they are a contract stipend situation that we're in. Getting back to your question, as far as camaraderie, we do a lot of stuff off season that I'm sure a lot of other people do. Competition-based work where we divide them into groups and finishers at the end of each workout. It's a little bit different in season. We're kind of conscientious of what we're putting them through in season, but we feel like those are great ways for leaders to emerge and to make sure that they're competing every time that they come in. So that's one thing. And I think you'll see that in nearly every program across the board.
Sure.
One thing that we've really been working on lately is giving responsibility to our seniors and to our juniors regarding teaching some stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not handing our seniors, our freshmen, and saying, hey, go teach these people how to clean, right? How to split jerk. But the exercises that they can execute and they can teach at a high level, more baseline stuff. What we've been doing is when we'll introduce a new phase of the program, we'll say, you three upperclassmen, you have this freshman, they're going to work out with you. You need to teach them the ins and outs of this, right? And so it's a really, really unique thing because some groups do awesome with it and others really, really struggle. And so that tells us, we have got some communication breakdowns, right? If you've done this lift for 3 years and you can't show it or correct it with a freshman, you need to work on that ability. And so by and large, it's been a really, really positive thing as far as giving them some leadership and building camaraderie. And we even do competitions. So they have to present their freshman, and their freshman does the lift, and we vote on who's got the best technique.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so they get kind of revved up for that of like, and we award them, points or whatever kind of competition we have based on going on at the time, based on how their freshman does. And so we've got to be careful on that because you put a little too much burden on some incoming kids, right? And we want to make sure we're very conscientious and smart about that. But it's usually really fundamental strength exercises. Like I said, it's not real technique intensive stuff, but kind of putting the onus on them and getting them to communicate and lead and also set the expectation for how we're going to do things in there.
That's a great idea. And I'm curious, when you put these seniors in these positions to teach, have you seen that has improved or had an effect on, going back to your core values, being accountable for every rep? Do you feel like that just makes those seniors and juniors more engaged in being a teammate and helping others as far as keeping everybody accountable? When it's them teaching, now it almost puts the ownership to them. Like, all right, if that sucks, that's on you. So have you seen that? Okay.
You're exactly right. Here's what I found is they're more comfortable giving feedback because they've already kind of developed a rapport. When those freshmen come in and you've got the week or so before the fall semester starts, they may have seen them on their recruiting trip, but they don't know these kids, right? They really don't. And so they're reluctant to really give them feedback to make sure that they're meeting our standard. that they're not going to jump all over them. But if you put them in that role where they're responsible for teaching, they've already kind of developed that rapport of like, this person is leading me. They're educating me on how to do this. So now you're exactly right. When that junior or senior comes over and says, hey, squeeze your shoulder blades and flatten your back here on this, they think, oh, that's just kind of their job here. And there's not a lot of like stepping on toes and that kind of thing. Whereas, usually in years past, before we started doing that, it would take a month or two before you'd start to see that leadership emerge, because they had to get to know these new kids.
Sure.
And so it's kind of opened the door of setting the standard from a very, very early point in the off season.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, Coach. That's great. I love that. Moving on here, Coach. You're super busy. You already mentioned that you're running the teams you are. Then you also teaching a full course load. So I'm sure you got to kind of optimize your workflow and training. Is there any resources or tools you're using to help do that?
Yeah. Especially in season, we utilize something, and maybe somebody else has called it this before, but we use a stress index questionnaire as a way to auto-regulate training and to kind of decide our load and intensity for the day. And so it's something I want to give a major shout out to a former student of mine, River Van Zant. He's the one who kind of put my idea and took it and made it way better, right? And then made it easy to deal with. He's a PhD student now at the University of Georgia. So we can all agree he's probably a little bit more intelligent than I am. So, but he made this simple deal, this resource for us. And we use it in season, and it's simply a Google survey. It's a 10-question Google survey. And what they do is they get on there once or twice a week, depending on how we set it up, and they rank 10 variables on a scale of 1 to 5. So think of things like sleep, hydration, relationships like socially, how they're doing with that, relationship with coaches and teammates, academics, financial stress. Financial stress is a lot bigger than people think, because I don't know about William Jewell, but very, very few of our athletes are on a full ride.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where we have student athletes who go to work, in the midst of all this. Well, that's set up so that with these 10 questions, 1 is the lowest score, 5 is the best, right? So if they score a 50, that means they are perfectly optimal, right? They're raring to go. Okay. But what the way this is set up is it feeds into a spreadsheet. And so I get this spreadsheet. So before I go into training, I've got a look at where everybody is and what the team average is. So if I go in there, right, and I'm between classes and I'm getting ready to go in there and I've got a game plan for the day, but I see the average amongst them is a 33 out of 50, right? That's what the scores are.
Yeah. Man,
we're down low, right? And vice versa. If we're in typically between a 44 and a 48, I'm thinking we can do what we have today and maybe more, right? Maybe we ratchet up the intensity a little bit. Maybe we add a set. We've really got to take advantage in season when we can, when they feel good, and we're not going to put extra burden on them. Let's go with it. But the real big thing, you can get that from a lot of different things. I've heard you talk on here about APRE, right? Great way to go about that, auto-regulating training.
Yeah.
The great part about this for us is communication, right? At the end of that survey, they can write in whatever they want to. And so you'll have students who said, I've got this huge biology test going on, or this interview for PT school, or I have this going on, or the communication that we can't get from the athletic training staff. They had a game the night before, and hey, I dove on the floor and I sprained my wrist. I'm going to the athletic training staff in the morning, or we've got an appointment set up, and now I can start thinking, okay, what can we do as alternatives for that? Right. Academic stress. We see them report a 1 or a 2. I had something go on earlier this semester so I walk up confidentially to the young lady and said, hey, what's going on academically? and she had kind of explained it. And I said, you're allowed to make up when you're not here for athletics. And she said, I am. I said, they should have explained this to you, and I'm sure they did. She said, well, I did miss a few days, that kind of a deal. Early on, I said, well, she essentially wasn't getting makeup work from her professor because that communication, it wasn't the professor's fault either. It was just a faulty communication. We were able to fix that issue.
Yeah.
Right.
That's huge.
Just knowing what was going on,
right.
And being able to identify that. And the last thing that it does for us is, it affects how I coach them. And I'll be very honest with you. There are some athletes, I'm sure you have this, that you push a little harder than others, right? Some need it and they enjoy that part. Others not so much, right? You have to do it a different way. But if I've got one of those athletes, but I see them reporting, hey, they've got something going on family-wise or there's some academic stress, that next morning when I would typically bark something across the room, that might be an instance where I jog over and I pull them aside and we have a quiet conversation about what they could do better.
Yeah.
Because they may not be in a position right there that they're going to take that the way they normally would.
Right.
And so it kind of helps me modulate my coaching, and I don't even know if that's the right word, but, adapt how I interact with them because I have a little bit more insight of what's going on.
Yeah.
In the process.
Well, that's a great tool, Coach. A great tool that you're using there. And I think it also just shows to the athletes that you care about them. I mean, it cares. You're not just getting them in and out of the weight room, but you care how they're doing. And it opens that communication line up. Like you said, I think that's very, very important. Huge.
Yeah. It certainly builds trust. And I will say some people fill out the open-ended last question. Some don't. And some write me paragraphs, and I feel like it's their journal. So,
right.
you have to everybody does a little bit different, but
Sure.
but there is some building of trust that comes along with that.
Yeah. All right, let's flip gears just a little bit. Let's talk training a little bit. What is your training philosophy there?
So I'm horrible about answering this question because it's a little bit different with every group and the time of year that we're in. So I will do different training methodologies, whether it's an undulating or, a conjugate method, depending on where we're at. So I'm not a real principle-based system. And I know that's probably not the ideal answer to the question because, you hear a lot of these people, I do the tier system. I think the tier system is great, but we don't use it all the time. So our training philosophy goes back to what I talked about with being an athlete and our core values. So are we going to move effectively? And then is there going to be muscular balance? We're going to train from the ground up. Almost everything we do is going to be multi-joint in nature. We're going to squat, we're going to hinge, we're going to push, we're going to pull, and we're going to work explosively with triple extension bilaterally and unilaterally, and work the core all the way around. We call it creating our own weight belt. So as far as a training philosophy goes, we don't follow anything, religiously. It kind of goes back and forth depending on where we're at in their training year. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think one of the things that makes our training philosophy maybe a little bit different is the way we tier it for different ability levels and those incoming people coming in. I think that's kind of our uniqueness.
Yeah, why don't you expand on that a little bit?
A lot of programs do this, right? You have incoming people or you have transfers. And they're going to be on a different level or with a different program than everybody else is. And that's a great thing because you really don't know. Some of these freshmen come in and they've never put their hands on a bar before, right? And you're trying to integrate them into a well-established strength and conditioning program. And you have others that have come from really high-profile high schools that have a great strength and conditioning program, or they've had some private training, right? So instead of doing different levels, right, that we put it all on the same card, which if you look at my workout sheet, it takes a little bit of like deciphering the code to figure out. But essentially, with every movement that we do, we have a regression and a progression, and sometimes two of them.
Yeah.
And the thought process behind that is really, really simple. When the freshmen come in, they're going to start with every regression, okay? But it gives the ability for them to see how it leads to the exercise that the older, the returners are doing, right? And how they could increase intensity to do so, or how it gets more technique intensive. but it also gives me the flexibility with those who come in at a higher training level to bump them up, right? So next week you get to do progression 1 for these 3 exercises because you've done a really nice job. You're still on progression 1, right, for squat, but for these other 3, right, you can move up, and it gives them a little bit of ownership of, hey, I improved. I showed I could do this at a high level, and now I can move up.
Yeah.
And so all on the same card, right, you'll see goblet squat, front squat, back squat, right? And so you have to show me you can goblet squat first. Then you have to show me you can front squat, and then we can load it a little heavier and we can back squat. And some people in as few as 3 or 4 weeks can make that leap from goblet to back squat. And some it takes 3 months before I put a bar on their back, right? But it's all kind of laid out there, and they don't have to pass every test to get to the next level. So they get a little encouragement. Hey, I'm doing a good job on this aspect of it. I get to move up, right? Likewise, for our returners, we can move you down, right? If you're not showing what you need to too. So, it's just a little bit of a unique twist on the different levels that you can do with them as they come in and progress through your program.
I kind of like that method you're using, because I think it probably works on a few different levels. One, when you put that, those progression regression on there, it shows the athlete's that there is a plan. I think sometimes athletes think, hopefully they don't think this, but I'm sure a lot do, that it's just like there's no method to the madness. Or there's just like we're gonna do this exercise because I think it's cool or something. Like, but when you have your regression progressions on there, I think it shows like, okay, this is thought out, that there is a plan for this, and then it works on another level. I think you mentioned that it's kind of probably a motivating thing for him too. Like, I want to get to, step 3 of this thing.
Yes. Yeah. And it makes it easier, honestly, for me to build my programs, right? Instead of doing 3 different ones per team. Yeah. Right. You just build one.
Sure.
Right. And we all know that every exercise doesn't have a perfect regression and a progression, but most of our multi-joint core ground-based work does have, does have that to where we can do it. So, and I was joking with punishment, but I used to do a different level system. They'd be like, I literally have to do push-ups and pull-ups and bodyweight squats. They saw that as like so rudimentary when everybody else is lifting a barbell, that they thought it was, and really it had a purpose, right? You had to show that you could do these fundamental things before you could move up. But it also kind of was, it wasn't very motivating,
sure,
right? For them to get to the next level, at least with one thing per week.
Yeah.
Right.
Coach, what is something that you're really excited about learning and improving on here in the next, foreseeable future year or so as a coach?
Lots. Not enough hours in the day, kind of a thing.
Sure.
So, my nightstand is packed with things that I've read or I'm rereading or I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to implement. So I think the Movement Over Max's book, that came out of, and I don't want to say his name wrong, I think it's Zach DeCont out of TCU.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it
I
either.
really enjoy. Yeah, so Zach, if you're listening, we love your book, but I'm not sure on his last name there, but working with overhead athletes is something that I'm trying to get better at. I would not say that I'm a specialist by any stretch of the imagination. And so I've read the book and I'm looking at ways to incorporate it from there. Same thing with triphasic. I know triphasic's been around for some time. But we have some limitations here as far as when we get our athletes and how much room we've got. I mean, we've got a tiny, tiny space right now. So I haven't gotten it tailored to the way I want it before I implement it yet, of how it can run in our system, our time frame from there. So I would say those 2 things are what I'm working on refining and see if I can incorporate into what we do.
Coach, this has been awesome. I got a couple pages of notes just from this last 30, 40 minutes. So let's wrap this thing up. I know you're super busy and you got groups coming in. So I just got 4 quick questions for here to finish this thing out. Sound good?
Okay. Yep.
What is your favorite office snack?
Cliff Bars, oatmeal raisin walnut.
Okay.
That's the go-to. Or I'm a little weird. Peanut butter sandwich, only peanut butter, and I do those daily.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
I left a Cliff Bar in my truck one day, one of the hotter days here, and I came out and it was kind of melted. And I was like, gosh dang it! And I ate it. It was the chocolate chip one. It's probably one of the best things I've ever had. It's money. That's money.
Yeah, exactly. You can't go wrong with the Cliff Bar from there.
All right, you got 15 minutes to work out just for yourself. What are you doing?
I'm probably gonna front squat to shoulder press. I'm probably gonna do like a walking lunge to curl, and probably like a dumbbell push up renegade row. I'm gonna try to get as much done as humanly possible.
Nice.
Right,
That's
upper
good.
and lower body, bilaterally, unilaterally, push, pull, that kind of deal. So unfortunately, I'm in that circumstance more often than I'm not. So I'm
sure.
pretty well versed
Yeah.
in that.
That's kind of why we do that question, is because we're all pretty familiar with that 15-minute to workout, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, this one's kind of tailored to you. So, what's your favorite topic when you teach that CSCS course? What's your favorite topic to teach out of that?
Oh man, that's a great question. I will tell you, it's not the nutrition. I mean, that I have to study up every year for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I'm a student again. I think for me, the program design part is really because a lot of times students, and we're getting better at it in our department, but the whole building of a program and integrating different training components together is a really challenging thing.
Yeah.
I think they have a really good idea of this will work really good for muscular strength. This is really good for agility, or, this is really good for speed development. And when we say, okay, how do you put all of that together where you're not going to overtrain them and you only have a certain amount of time? Like, how do you integrate that together? When we really get into discussing that, is where I think, I don't know necessarily if it makes them pass the test, but I can tell you from the reviews of the course, that's something that they really take away, of like an understanding of how am I going to blend this all together to make a comprehensive training program for somebody in a limited amount of time, right? If you get them 4 hours a week or whatever you get them, and not overtrain them at the same time. So I think that's my favorite part, for sure.
That's hard. That's hard to do, and that's hard to teach, I'm sure. So that's good. All right, Coach. So last question is maybe a small coach or two that you think small school strength coach. Sorry, not small coach. Small school strength coach who you think does a great job and deserves a shout
out. Logan Barrett at UT Dallas, the Division III school down there. He's one of the former students out of University of Southern Indiana, and he's done a great job as he's gone through and done his GA work and then got there. He's one of those that's a former student of yours that when you call, you always feel like you learned something.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about what I hear about him doing down there and obviously his career trajectory from there. So definitely a guy on the rise there, young strength coach at a small D3 that's doing really, really big things.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right, Coach, again, thanks so much for coming on and spending some time with us. Good luck the rest of the fall semester here. And I know you guys, the men's basketball and your basketball programs are getting ready to ramp up, and that's kind of your big sport there. So good luck this season. Hope you guys have a great year and keep killing it there.
I appreciate it. Thanks, and good luck to you as well.